I'm Mykelti, like he said. I am so excited to be able to be with you guys tonight. I've known Justin and Tara. I was trying to figure out while you were talking, not that I was not listening, but it's got to be like 6 or 7 years. And I have a plethora of embarrassing stories, if you're ever curious, mostly about Justin, all of them including chicken wings. So we have that going for us. But yes, like I said, I'm Mykelti. I'm here with my husband, Wyatt, in the back, and he's got our little 4-month-old. And, fingers crossed that it all goes well. If a baby starts crying and you see me get really, triggered, that's why. But a little bit about us. We live in Brooklyn Center, so it has been a little bit of a crazy week for us. Justin almost got his wish of us moving to Buffalo, this close. Yes. But I am an adoption social worker, licensed social worker, have been in the adoption foster care world for about 4 years now, working directly with families who are wanting to make an adoption plan and also with birth moms who are looking to create an adoption plan for their child. So it's been a crazy road. I love what I do. I have started Heart of the Brave ministry about 3 or 4 years ago now, and that's awesome. Love it. A lot of that platform is I have a podcast, Coffee with Kelty, and my heart and my goal in life is to encourage people and help them to understand their worth, their calling, and their purpose in Jesus Christ. So if everything I say tonight is blech and you don't like any of it, if you walk away feeling encouraged and that Jesus loves you and you know your worth, then perfect. Then I did my job. So that's all that I pray for and hope for tonight. But I love talking about the Bible and Jesus, but tonight, we will be talking about them. We are in church. But tonight I really want to focus on some practical pieces and some things that I've been battling for years now that every single person comes in contact with, and what I've just talked with a lot of people about in just the last couple of years, but this idea of intimidation and comparison. I think I could ask all of us to raise our hand. Has anyone struggled with intimidation or comparison? Put your hands up real high. Wear it proud. We've all struggled with that. It's hard. It's hard to be walking in the world we live in where we have social media and highlight reels and we see things in other people that we desire for ourselves, or we're intimidated coming into a new situation, new people. Anybody else walk into new people groups and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a confident person, but I'm terrified right now. What are they going to think of me? How should I act? How should I respond? Anybody else walk away from a conversation and you're like, I was so awkward. I literally think about awkward conversations that I had years ago still. Oh my gosh, I was so awkward. I think about it all the time. So all of these things are things that we have struggled with in our life, and we have a tendency to not want to talk about them because that creates a lot of vulnerability, right? You have to be vulnerable. We have to do a lot of self-discovery. I'm so sorry, person with the camera. I'm running back and forth doing a marathon back there. I just realized that. But we really have to look into ourselves and be vulnerable, and vulnerability is really hard. So I just wanted to create a space tonight so that we can talk about it. And I'm going to be really honest with you and things that I have battled with and that I have really struggled with, and hopefully can give you guys some tips and encouragement that when you're going out into your life and you are fronted with this, that you are able to say, this is what I have learned, and I can battle this, I can conquer this. So let's dive in. So for me personally, I have seen this a lot in the last couple of years, like I mentioned, with starting a ministry, with going into the professional field, with becoming a wife, hello, intimidating, scary, with becoming a mom shaming, that's a thing. So really terrifying things that I've come into in my life recently, where this has really been in the front of my mind. And it's a constant battle every single day to be working through these things and trying to find confidence in myself when I am overall a very insecure person. So having to find that confidence and walk through that, trying to find my identity in Jesus and making that the front of who I am, the importance of who I am. So we're going to kind of break this down a little bit. I want to first talk about intimidation. And when I'm talking about intimidation tonight, we're really talking about that intimidation of starting something new, the intimidation of being vulnerable, the intimidation of being our authentic self and who we are. Walking into a room, walking into a new situation, being in your career and being asked to try something new, being asked to be a leader when you're like, I've never been a leader before. Are people even going to follow me? All of these pieces are of intimidation. And we can't have a conversation about intimidation without talking about insecurities, because insecurities foster an environment of intimidation. Those are really what is kicking that intimidation in the face and saying, hey, this is where I'm coming from. This is how I'm feeling. And with insecurities, it's ironic to me because most of the time our insecurities are things that we have created in ourselves, that we're intimidated by things that no one has necessarily even said about us. Granted, there are people that will say really hurtful things to you in your life and cause you to have insecurities because someone said that about you. I remember in kindergarten, I made a purple cat, and my art teacher said, Mykelti, cats aren't purple. And so I hated arts and crafts after that because I just was like, oh, that was so embarrassing. And so I never really wanted to do arts and crafts because of that instinct. So there have been times where people have spoken hurtful things that cause insecurities. But oftentimes when we are moving forward and trying to go through something and having intimidation, it's because of our own assumptions. It's because of things that we put on ourselves. For example of this is, I was talking with a friend once, and she was contemplating going to grad school, contemplating getting certified in her career. She was in the process of getting married and having a lot of insecurities around that. And she was saying all of these things about herself, like, oh, I don't think I can do it. I'm not smart enough to go to grad school. I'm not this, that, and then some. And I just looked at her and said, who told you that? Did anybody say that to you? Did anyone tell you you weren't good enough for this? Did anyone tell you you weren't good enough to be his wife, that you weren't smart enough to take this next step in your career? And she really thought about it and said, no one has ever said those things to me. And they're just complete lies from the enemy. She had created all of that up into her head. So there are things that we really assume about ourselves that no one has ever said. So really taking the time, it's my social worker side of me, self-reflection, and really sitting and thinking, where did that come from? When you're faced with a negative thought, take the time to stop and say, did someone say that to me? Is that something that I have to rebuke in the name of Jesus? Or is that something that I have put on myself that isn't even true? So taking the time to do that for yourself. Now, for some reason, there are people who say really negative things to us, and that it's incredibly hurtful, and we have to carry with us. And because of that, we have to decide moving forward, how am I going to approach new situations? What am I going to do when I'm faced with a challenge that I have been told I can't overcome? When someone has said, you can't do this. The amount of gym teachers that said, Mykelti, you aren't going to be able to do a pull-up. I have still never done a pull-up in my life. They were right, but I do not ever want to try because I believe I can't do it from what they said to me. So for some reason, we really like to wrap our worth into our failures and successes. That is how we decide to define us, which isn't true. And I said this in a sermon once, and it still sticks with me, but failure is an event. It's not your destination. Failure is an event. It's one thing that happened. It was a situation, but we can't let that determine our outcome. We can't continue on in life saying, well, I'm always a failure because of this one thing that happened. We have to work to take back control in our life through that. We have to decide that, you know what, just because I feel like I'm unqualified doesn't mean that I actually am. The thing I love most about God, well, not the thing I love most about God, but one of the things I love most about God is that he qualifies the unqualified. He loves to use unqualified people. You look in the Bible, and there are a lot of unqualified people that he has chosen to use for his glory. A good example of this is Moses. Moses hated public speaking. I didn't know that until a couple of years ago, but he really didn't like to public speak. And when God told him, I want to have you lead the people out of Egypt, he was like, I'm not a good talker. I don't know if I can do that. But he was qualified by God to do it. And that wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like God was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I did not give you that piece in your DNA. Never mind. I'll come back. I'll go to somebody else. He didn't say that. He said, no, I have chosen you. I will equip you. I will qualify you. So we have to remember that in those moments where we don't feel good enough, where we don't feel that we are worthy enough, is that God has chosen you for a reason. He isn't going to choose you and set you up for failure. Sure, there might be trials you have to go through. It might not be easy and smooth sailing, but he has chosen you for that purpose. Something that I have found out about the devil is that he is a really big hypocrite, because this is why. I get really excited about this, guys. So the devil likes to tell you, you're not worthy, right? That's a really big lie that he likes to say to us, is you're not worthy, you're not good enough. But the thing is, the devil only wastes his time on people who are a threat to him. He is threatened by people. He's threatened by those who are going to bring glory to God. He is just threatened by you as a person just because you're a person. And he wants to destroy you because you are a person. And if we were so not worthy and unqualified, then why would the devil waste his time with us, right? Why would he waste his time on us if we really weren't good enough and we really were unworthy? So next time you're having those thoughts and you're feeling that I'm not good enough, what can I contribute? Just take a moment and be like, hold on. No. This is a lie from the enemy, because you are attacking me because you are threatened by me. And then you feel really good about yourself going on the rest of the day, like, yeah, I intimidated the devil. So just keep that in your pocket as you're moving forward, is that he is threatened by you. So when you're experiencing those lies from the enemy, just remind yourself of that. Another thing that can be a huge intimidation for us is our past. We might not all have butterfly and rainbow pasts. A lot of people have made mistakes. A lot of people have done things that they wish they didn't. I know that there's stuff in my past that I'm not proud of, but how many pastors in the world do you think there would be if you couldn't be a pastor, you didn't move forward as a pastor because of your past, right? I'm sure there would be very few that moved forward because of that, because all of us have made mistakes. All of us have experienced that. So if you are someone who is letting your past intimidate you from moving forward, those are the moments where you just have to have a conversation with Jesus and to say, you know what, let my insecurity become my ministry. Let this thing in myself that is really hard, that I'm not proud of, help me to move forward to help somebody else. Because there is going to be other people out there who maybe have experienced that same thing that you have, that you're insecure about, that they need help with, they need to come out of. So choose to use that as a resource. Use that to help push you forward, to encourage other people to come out of that darkness that you are experiencing to move forward. Another thing that people can be intimidated by is their age. I've heard time and time again, I'm too young to do that. I'm too old to do that. I experienced this the other day in myself. There was something I was contemplating doing, and I said, I can't do that. I'm too young to do that. Nobody would respect me because I'm too young. And I was just like, no, that's not true. God uses so many people of so many different ages. I just look at Mary. She was a teenager. Like, Mary was really young, and he chose her to be the woman that carries the Son of God. That's huge. There is never a certain age that this is your prime and now God can use you. He can use you at any stage of life. It's been amazing to see these teenagers raising thousands of dollars for Speed the Light, raising like hundreds and thousands of dollars to give to people who need it. And they put goals on themselves. They're not just a bunch of teenagers. They are making a difference in the world. So there's never a moment where someone is too young or too old. I just had a conversation with a woman the other day who was saying that I am in my 60s and I feel like I want to start this new career, but I'm really nervous because this is a career that is mainly focused on younger people. So what do I do at this point? And I said, it doesn't matter. It's not that you wasted your time, because she was feeling like, I just spent years and years in accounting and I want to do something that's completely different in accounting. Did I waste my time? Did I waste money on what I did for my schooling? And no, There is no wasting because God chooses to grow you and mold you as you're going along in life. It isn't that you jump into something new that he was surprised by, like, okay, we're changing plans, we're doing this. He's not surprised by that. Every season that you're in, every area that you're walking through, you are learning something. You are growing in something. And so you can use that in any stage of your next steps. Example of this in my life. So like I told you all, I have been in adoption and foster care, adoption social worker. And all of a sudden, about 2 years ago, I kind of was like, I want to take a turn into the podcasting world, in the speaking world, and to just really encouraging and supporting people and focusing more on what God needs me to do. And I was really upset at myself because I was like, did I just waste all of my time? Did I just waste my whole college career, getting my license in social work, all of these years in adoption? And realized, no, that isn't true at all. Part of my job in adoption is going through home study meetings where we sit and we talk about your entire life. So if you ever want to do foster care and adoption, we sit and go through every aspect of your life. We talk about relationships. We talk about parenting experience. We talk about your family of origin. How do you do with grief and loss? How do you do when your expectations aren't met? And all of these really heavy things. And I realized my podcast and going into the podcast world is interviewing people about their lives. So I was able to learn all of those skills and bring that into what God had for me next. So none of that was a mistake. None of it was a waste. I was able to understand deep empathy for people and to really sit with people in their lowest moments. When you're sitting with a 15-year-old girl who is holding her child in the hospital and she's about to create an adoption plan and probably not see them again, that is hard stuff. And that grew me as a person and how to sit with people in their lowest moments and how I can support them. And that just morphs into what I want to do for my ministry. So there's nothing that you're doing in life right now that God can't mold and use for your future. So it's important to remember that nothing is a waste. All right, now we're going to talk about comparison more specifically. And I think all of us have experienced comparison. We walk into a situation and we're like, oh my gosh, I wish I had what that person had. Or you're catching up with a friend from college and you're like, wow, they seem to really have it all together and their family seems perfect. Like, what's wrong with me? Should I say anything about I just came from a house where there was literally dirty diapers all over the floor or a spit up in my hair and I just won't tell her. You know, we have these pieces of us, and comparison can be really intense with that. And we can compare characteristics. We can compare, like I said, finances, or compare spouses, where it's like, wow, that person, you know, their spouse took the time to do this for them, and I can't get mine to get off the couch and help me with the kids, which is not true. He's a great husband. That's not coming from any deep place. We have this comparison piece of us that walks with us everywhere. And I was listening to a message one time and heard, it was Sadie Robertson, and she was talking about comparison. And she was like, isn't it funny how we don't compare ourselves to the other pieces of God's creation? And I was like, huh. And I really sat with that for a bit. Because it's true, we don't. It's not like we look at the sun and we're like, man, I'm jealous at the glow of the sun. Why can't I glow like that sun? We don't walk around and look at flamingos at the zoo and be like, I wish I had the grace of a flamingo. They can stand on one foot. I can't even walk on two. We don't walk around thinking that of other pieces of God's creation. And so why do we compare ourselves to each other? Because we need to start looking at each individual person as a different creation from God. That each person was created specifically in their DNA for what God needed to utilize them for. Their characteristics are different than you. Just like I'm not as tall as a mountain, not even close. I'm as pale as a mountain, but that's about as much as I got going for me. And we have to start seeing each other as different creations, because when we do that, our change of focus it's completely different, because we can look at them and be like, wow, that is an amazing thing for you. I'm so glad that you have that going for you. I can encourage you. I can root you on for whatever you're doing in your life because I see you differently. And comparison isn't a new thing. It is all over the Bible. People are comparing themselves left and right back then. There is nothing new there. We see the story of David, and someone's literally coming to his house to find who's going to be the next king, anoint the next king. And his dad didn't even bother to invite him. His dad was like, oh, I have another kid, but he's out in the field, with the sheep. Didn't even bother to think of him. How do you think he felt in comparing himself to his brothers? Or Leah and Rachel, where literally her dad had to trick somebody so she could get married. And then he marries her sister. So her whole life, the sister rivalry is a unique thing in its own. But now it's sister wives. So that's a whole new piece of rivalry going on there. And how do you think she felt to know that she was the unwanted one and he was the one she really wanted? That's going to stick with you for a while. So comparison is everywhere in the Bible. But it's remembering that we are unique. We are the original. We will always be the original. I think we think of Adam and Eve as the original, but we have to start thinking of that as ourselves. We are the original Mykelti. I'm glad I don't have to change my name. I don't have to share my name with other people. It's pretty unique, except for there is a Mykelti on Sister Wives, ironically. But I was born first, so they took it from me. But, now I got off track and thinking about Sister Wives. I've never seen it, but I'm too bitter. But, because she has my name, not because I want to be a Sister Wives. I want to make that clear. Oi. Now where was I? I'm still thinking about Sister Wives. This is why we have notes here. Oh yeah, we are the original. So we are the original, and we have to remember that in ourselves as we are walking through life, as we're trying to compare ourselves to each other, is that is who they are. It's so cheesy, and it sounds easier than it really is, right? It's really nice to think about how easy that would be, but we have to remember that God created us specifically to be us. Our DNA can't be matched unless they perfect cloning. But that is not where we're going with this. So now we're going to look at how comparison and intimidation can really impact our lives. There's two areas that I want to focus on that I think are crucial to be talked about. The first one is our relationships. Intimidation and comparison really impacts our relationships. We tend to look at the world in highlight reels. And that's a very big Instagram term, but we like to see the world in highlight reels. We see the good that everybody else has going on for them. That, oh my gosh, this person went on this dream vacation. They're in the Bahamas for a week. I wish I could have that. Why can't I have that? But what you didn't know is that they maxed out their credit card going on this dream vacation. Or that the whole time they spent fighting with each other and the kids were driving them crazy. But you don't see that on social media. And I think it's funny how when we pass by people, the new thing to say instead of hi is, how are you? I said that to someone the other day when they were on a bike passing by me. They had no intention to stop to have a conversation with me on how they're doing. They were literally on a bike. But we just say, how are you? And there's no moment to sit and actually have a conversation to hear how the other person is doing. We go out to coffee with a friend we haven't seen in a while, and we talk all about the good pieces and how life is going. And they say, how's it going with you? And you're like, oh, everything is great. Everything's fine. The family's awesome. But they don't know that you just cried the whole way there. Because we're intimidated and scared to be vulnerable and real, because what if they think less of us? What if they think that, wow, that person really doesn't have it together? What if they don't want to be around you anymore? You don't want to seem that way to somebody that you used to compete with in school, in high school. You want to seem like you have the pieces together. But what happens is when we start to break down those walls and start to be vulnerable, you create this Me Too sense where you can say, you know what, I did cry the whole way here. I'm going to be honest with you. Cried the whole way here because I'm just really failing as a mom today. And it's just really hard. And I feel like I don't have it together. Or, you know what, things in my marriage are really, really tough. But we don't want to say that because then what if they think less of my husband? There's that fear in that piece. I had this experience today. I took Nathaniel out to his first play date at the park, and I was meeting with some of my friends. And there are all these seasoned moms. I think they have it all together. It was mass chaos. I've never seen so many kids. There was one person running to try to stop the kid in the parking lot. The other one was eating gravel. I was just sitting there with my hands free. I didn't know what to do. And I was so embarrassed because I took out the sweater that I brought for Nathaniel, and it was too short. It was too small. I couldn't fit it over his head. He was bawling. Then I realized halfway through I didn't put sunscreen on his face, and so I'm trying to get the sunscreen. It gets in my hair. It gets all over his face. It's just a mess. And I was so insecure and so intimidated and comparing myself to these moms. And then I was like, oh, mom failing as a mom today, because we like to, joke with ourselves when we're failures, because then they can't say it to us, right? If we say it first. And then my friend just looked at me and she was like, we're all still learning. And just like that acknowledgement that this is hard was so helpful, because I could be like, yeah, I am learning. I'm trying to figure this out. I don't know what I'm doing. And created this conversation where we were able to be honest with each other. One of the primary goals of the devil is to isolate us. He doesn't want us to connect, because when we connect, we get encouraged. We see Jesus through each other. We see that there's hope, and he wants us to be isolated and alone and scared. Sin loves to hide in the dark. If you don't have an area where you can be honest about the sin and the pressures that you're going through, he loves it, because then you sit in it and it gets worse and worse, and it's a downward spiral. So when you open up those, me too, this is really hard, me too, someone else can take that step and be like, okay, I haven't told anyone this, but this is what I'm going through. And you create this place where the walls are coming down, and intimidation and comparison can't live there. It can't live in a space where there's vulnerability, where there's rawness and realness. I think that can become like a hashtag real talk, but for real, like you're actually sitting and having real conversations and able to pour into each other and show each other what the love of Jesus Christ is, and that's where lives are changed. That's when there is movement. That's when things happen and lives get changed. They get to find Jesus in that. Another piece for relationships and what it impacts is our authenticity. I already told you guys that I am very much known for having incredibly awkward conversations with people and then walking away. And I truly am thinking about conversation from like 2 years ago. It happened to me the other day. Because when I'm coming into a situation, and this might just be me, who knows, but when I'm coming into a situation where I'm meeting someone new or I'm intimidated and uncertain, I try to match who they are so they'll like me. I try to morph myself into, oh, this is a sporty person. I'll pretend that I like sports. Hey, Kirk Cousins, right? Right? Which, Kirk Cousins, not right. Sorry if you have different opinions, but and I try to kind of fixate on who they are so that they'll like me, but that's not real. That's not who I am. But doesn't it feel so good to walk into a situation and to be like, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. Because you leave feeling confident. You feel confident in yourself. You feel confident that that is who God called you to be. So when you're facing a situation with comparison, this is what I do, and maybe it's not for everybody, but I would encourage you to do this next time, where if you're feeling really embarrassed or concerned or intimidated going into a conversation or going into a situation, let's say you have a new opportunity that your boss says, hey, I want you to lead this project on something. And you're like, okay, great. And then you're like, wait, no, this is bad. I'm going to be in front of people. I'm really nervous about this. I want you to kind of sit back, and this is what I do. I say, you know what, Mykelti? There is someone who could do it better than you, right? You're all like, what? There is someone who could do it better than you, but guess what? They chose you. They asked you to do it. Justin could have asked anybody else to come up here and speak, but he asked me to do it. And so I have to push back the insecurity. I have to push back the intimidation and say, I'm going to walk into this confidently. I'm going to do my best and see what I can do, but I have to trust that God has chosen me for this. All of us have callings. All of us have a purpose in this life. And I think an issue when we talk about calling is that we do this calling comparison thing where people think a calling means I'm going to be in missions or I'm going to be a pastor or a worship leader or a big known author and speaker, but that's not true. Your calling could be you are a teacher and you are going to pour into the lives of those kids every day. Or you're in the business world. You have a Fortune 500 company, but you are going to minister to all those people that you can and show the love of Christ to everyone that you can encounter. Maybe it is that you are in construction, and every day when you are walking into someone else's house, you're praying over that house that they find Jesus. You can have a calling in every area of your life. You can have a calling that is specific to you, and it doesn't have to just be one thing. So we don't need to compare ourselves, but we need to be confident in the calling that God has on our life. because that's what he has asked us to do. That's who we are. And to not be intimidated by it. Is this where you want the worship team to come up? Worship team can come up. But to not be intimidated and to step confidently in what God has asked you to do. Because this was something that I struggled with for a while, where I said, I feel like delayed obedience is still disobedience. That to some extent, that can still be disobedient in our life. God asked me to start my ministry 2 years before I actually did it because I was so intimidated. I was so worried about, what is everyone going to think? Is anyone going to care what I have to say? Is anyone going to relate? Am I just going to embarrass myself? What are my family and friends going to think? Are they going to be embarrassed if I don't do well? What if I don't get the likes on Instagram that I want? And I was so afraid. I was comparing myself left to right to everyone else when God was saying, no, I have chosen you for this. I'm going to equip you in every area that you need to be equipped because you've been chosen. And to not let intimidation and comparison to everybody else stop you from moving forward in that. I'll just end on this story. So there was a moment about 2 years ago where I just wanted to be done with everything that I was doing. And I saw all of these people getting Facebook posts, likes, by the littlest thing. I was pouring my heart out, and I felt like nobody cared. And I was like, God, I'm done with this. This is too much for me. I'm being hurt too much. I'm being rejected. And then one morning, I wake up, it was a Saturday morning, me and Wyatt were going to go golfing. And I saw this message from someone from Ohio. And she said, hi, you don't know me, but I just wanted you to know that this last week was really hard for me. And I was struggling. I hated my job. It was a toxic workplace, but I was so scared to go anywhere else. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to take a step. I was super intimidated because I thought, this is what I went to school for. But then I was just looking online, and I came across your website, and I came across an article that you did about you be you, that you just be you, be your authentic self. Find the desires that you have in your heart and move forward in those because God placed those desires and passions on your heart. So be in tune with that. And she said, I saw it, and I felt so encouraged that I quit my job, and I found a job that I love, and I surrounded my people who are encouraging me, and I started going to church again. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I just broke down crying. And this isn't a story about, look at me, woohoo, look what I did. But it was a story to show that, wow, even if I help one person, then it's all worth it. Even if I do a message and nobody liked it, but one person felt impacted and felt empowered, then it was worth it. And it was a reminder that even in whatever you're doing in life, instead of focusing on the big picture, focusing on, I want to be this big, amazing thing, or I want to do this and that, but just focus on helping one person, because you have no idea what your calling is going to be. You have no idea who you are going to impact through what you are doing on the day-to-day. You're a teacher. You have no idea what your words and just your check-in to that child meant when you just said, how are you doing? And they haven't been asked how they're doing in months. You have no idea the impact that you can make, but all we can do is just take that next step. All we can do is say, yes, God, I'm listening. All we can do is push back the intimidation, push back the comparison, and know that, yeah, I may not be the best person for the job, but I'm who's here. That I'm going to do what God asked me to do in the best I can in that situation. So that's just my prayer for you guys today. That's just what I really had on my heart that I wanted to encourage you in. That I really hope that all of you leave here today and say, in times where I'm faced with intimidation, I'm going to say, you know what? It's a lie from the enemy. That I'm going to step into this, and I'm going to do it boldly, and I'm going to do it with God with me. Because he'll qualify you. He will equip you to take that next step and to do whatever you need to do. You have no idea who you can impact. And to not let comparison hold you back from doing anything, because you are the original. You're the original you. We don't need to compete because everything else is a different creation. Everyone else is doing their own thing. So just trust that God has a plan for your life and just do it like Nike says. So let's pray. God, I just pray over every single person in this room that you would just encourage them whenever they're facing discouragement, whenever they feel that they're not good enough or they're not worthy enough, that you would remind them that you created them specifically. You created them to be exactly who they are. You put the passions and the dreams and the desires in their heart. So I pray that they would just rise up confident that you are God and that you will equip them. That we would not let the comparison of the world or the highlight reels tell us who we are, but we would let you tell us who we are. That we would no longer value the opinion of people over the opinion of you. I pray all of this in your name. Amen.